Hello and welcome to all students in this our YouTube channel. Students, we are in the topic of chemical kinetics, and in our last lecture we have seen the integrated rate equations for zero order reaction as well as for first order reaction, and also we have seen in our last lecture the graphs which are present in it. And in continuation with that previous knowledge, in our today's lecture we are going to learn the half life of a reaction. Now students, first of all we will understand what is meant by the half life of a reaction. Half life of a reaction is the time in which the concentration of a reactant is reduced to one half of its initial concentration. Means suppose a reactant is having concentration 100 at the start, it will falls if 50, to the 50 at the half life of a reaction. That is what we are calling it as a half life of a reaction. So it is represented by t 1/2, means time at the half interval of that complete reaction. t 1/2 for a zero order reactions is, now we are going to calculate from the equation. For a zero order reaction, rate constant is given by this equation. Students, we have seen in our previous lecture this equation, K is equal to concentration of R0 minus concentration of R divided by T, which is we have seen in our previous first order rate expression. Now here some values we are substituting in this equation so as to get t 1/2 equation. So students, time required is nothing but the t 1/2, and the initial concentration of that reactant falls to the 1/2 of its original concentration. So both these terms we are substituting in the above equation. At the place of t we are substituting the value t 1/2, and at the concentration of reactants we are substituting 1/2 R0, means half the concentration of its initial value. So the rate constant at t 1/2 now becomes K is equal to concentration of R0 minus 1/2 of R0, concentration of R0 divided by t 1/2, and after rearranging we are getting this equation, that is t 1/2 is equal to concentration of R0 divided by 2K, or we can also say 1/2 of R0, concentration of R0 divided by K. Now from this above equation it may be clear that t 1/2 for a zero order reaction is directly proportional to the initial concentration of the reactants and inversely proportional to the rate constant. So this is the important point that you have to keep in mind. Half life of a reaction t 1/2 for a first order reaction we have calculated in the previous slide. For first order reaction, if we are going to apply, what we have to determine here, its actual value and its relation with K. Thus for a first order reaction, half life period is constant. Now that value we are going to calculate here. So for that what we require is nothing but the equation for first order reaction, and this equation we have calculated in our previous slide, that is K is equal to 2.303 divided by T log to the base 10 of R0 upon R, that is concentration. At t 1/2 concentration of R will be R0 upon 2, because it will be the concentration of half of its initial value. So at the place of R we are substituting this value. So the above equation now we are getting is in this form, or we can say t 1/2 is equal to 2.303 divided by K log of 2, because this these terms r0 upon r0 now get cancelled here. So what will remain is nothing but the 1 upon 1 half. Now it becomes log of 2, and t 1 half is equal to 2.303 divided by k. The value of log 2 now we are going to substitute here. So we are getting its value will be 0.3010. So simply we are substituting 0.301 here, and by multiplying these two quantities 2.303 and 0.301, we are getting the value 0.693 divided by k. This is the t 1 half, that is half life for a first order reactions. From this equation we can say that it is independent of initial concentration of the reacting species. This is for what we can say the half life of reaction for first order reaction. Now some problems may be asked in your exam, and the pattern of that question will be like this. We are taking the practice problems here. A first order reaction takes 40 minutes of 30% completion. For that, what you have to do is calculate its t1 half value. This type of question can be asked in your theory exams as well as sometimes in JEE or CET also. The decomposition of phosphine, that is PH3, proceeds according to the following equation. This is the equation and its corresponding rate is also mentioned, and half life of PH3 they have given is nothing but 37.9 seconds at 120 degrees Celsius temperature. So in this case what you have to do is to calculate the rate of the following equation, and sometimes according to the above information you have to calculate 3/4 of, means the time required of 3/4, not 1/2, like that you have to calculate here. And the second question they asked from the above information is that what the fraction of original sample of PH3 remains behind after 1 minute. This type of questions may be asked in your exam. Now students, continuation with the previous knowledge, in our today's lecture we are also going to look at the next point, pseudo first order reaction. Pseudo, this word is nothing but the what we can say, it may be imaginary, or we can say sometimes we have to appears like that, but it is not actually present like that. So that concept is nothing but what you can say the pseudo. And first order reaction we already seen some examples of it also, and we have also derived the equation for it. So actual what does it means, pseudo first order reaction? Reactions which are not truly of first order, but under certain conditions, some conditions, reaction becomes that of first order, are called as pseudo unimolecular reaction or pseudo first order reactions. For our understanding, we are going to take one of the example is nothing but the hydrolysis of ester in the presence of acid. Students, look at this equation. This equation, in this equation, the reactant terms are nothing but the CH3CO C2H5. Now going to react it with water, in the sense this is nothing but the hydrolysis of an ester. Now it will converting it into the corresponding acetic acid as well as ethanol. In this reaction, the rate expression, if you want to write, it would be like this: R is equal to K into the concentration of ester term and the concentration of water term. And students, we already all of us know that hydrolysis takes place in the excess of water and concentration change of H2O is negligible practically. Or in another words, we can say concentration of water is same in the universe, as the concentration of water will not change for means it will not change for a maximum value. So the concentration of water we are considering is negligibly impractically. Therefore R is equal to K dash Ester. What does it means? That K dash is nothing but the equal to the terms of concentration of that water into K. So the equation will becomes now like this: K dash is nothing but what we can say K into concentration of H2, because both are constant terms. By replacing these both terms, we have written K dash in the above equation. Now students, we can experimentally, or we can by observing sometimes a example of pseudo first order equation in terms of concentrations, we can better understand. So for better understanding, we have also added one of the example of hydrolysis of ester, but in this equation we have introduced the concentration terms. By using that concentration terms, you can better understand than that of the previous slide. Here students, the concentration of ester initially at T is equal to 0 is having concentration 0.01 mole, and that of water is 10 mole. And when a reaction gets started, at the initial time the product forming are nothing but 0 mole, because reaction is at initial stage, and the product C2H5OH, that is ethanol formed, is also 0. But at time T, what happens? The concentration of ester now gets decreased, or it will be going to be a decrease, and after some time the concentration of water also gets decreased, and it will converting it into the corresponding acetic acid. So the concentration of acetic acid is now going to be increased, and it will becomes 0.01 molar, and at the same time the product formed is also having 0.01 mole. So in this equation what we understood is that concentration of water does not get altered that much as we expected. So this is very important concept. From this we can conclude that concentration of water may not alter with higher difference. So we can write its rate expression like this: rate is equal to K dash into concentration of ester as well as concentration of water. And we can also understood the concentration of water will be a constant, it will not change for the participating in the chemical reaction. So we can also write the final equation as a K is equal to K dash into rate is equal to K into concentration of its corresponding ester molecule. So from that we can say that this reaction, by observing, if it looks like a second order reaction, but in actual or in practical case this reaction is nothing but of pseudo first order reaction, means its rate is appearing like a second order. If you look at its order of a reaction, it will be appearing like a second order, but in real case it is an example of pseudo first order reaction. Now students, the next point is nothing but methods of determining the order of a reaction. In that, the first one is that integrated method. The equation which gives a constant value of K will decides the order of a reaction. And the second method also we can use is nothing but the graphical method. From this, the data are plotted according to the integrated rate equations that we have already seen for zero and first order equations, so as to yield a straight line. Slope will gives the value of rate constant for first order we have seen. And the third one is nothing but the initial rate method. In this case, the concentration of one of the reactant is varied, and in half-life method we are going to plot a half-life of reactant versus the concentration of the reactant. From that data we can calculate the order of a reaction. Now these are the different reactions, zero, first and second order, its corresponding differential rate law, integrated rate law, and their corresponding slopes and units we have calculated here. So this is the overall chart by which comparing of this zero, first and second we can conclude. So this is all about in our today's lecture. Thank you very much.